Hey everyone, and welcome to Valley of Secrets. I'm your host, Nikki Ruth. For today's episode, I have a real mystery for you, one that will make your head spin. This story is also a little different than my previous episodes, as I had the privilege of speaking with people who know the victim personally, a close friend, and family members who lived this story, who loved her, and who have chosen to remain anonymous for specific reasons. Their perspective adds details you won't find in the headlines, and I think it's important to include their voice. So let's go back to January 30th, 2021. It's a Saturday night in Chilliwack, British Columbia. If you've ever been here in January, you know the kind of night I'm talking about. Damp, cold, quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear the Fraser River in the distance if you stop and listen. Inside a small apartment on Edward Street, two little boys, just 2 and 3 years old, are safe at home. Their mom says goodbye before heading out for a quick drive in her brand new Hyundai Tucson to clear her head. Her boyfriend stays back, tucks her boys into bed, and watches TV. But she never comes home. 2 days later, her vehicle is found abandoned near the Fraser River. And 4 months later, her body surfaces nearly 100 kilometers, which is about 55 miles downstream. The coroner rules her cause of death as drowning, but the manner? Accident? Suicide? Homicide? No one knows for certain. This is the story of the mysterious death of Shaelene Keeler Bell. Shaelene Keeler Bell, those close to her called her Shae, was just 23 years old. Her greatest achievement was being a mom to 2 little boys, Grayson, aged 3, and Sawyer, aged 2. Those boys were her world. Shae was known to her friends and family as being loving and always willing to help. She loved children and animals, and you could catch her watching true crime shows or Hallmark Christmas movies in the evenings. A girl after my own heart. Her family states she loved McDonald's chicken nuggets, and she would sometimes go at 11 p.m. at night to get them. Shae was very petite, only 5'2" and weighed 95 pounds, but she had a big personality. She was a cheerleader in high school, and she was known to be funny, a girl who had a good sense of humor, which helped her get through some rough times. Shae's childhood had its share of challenges. Her parents were not together, and she was raised mostly by her mother in Chilliwack and spent weekends at her father's house. She had survived a sexual assault in middle school, trauma no child should ever endure. She even spent some time in a transition home trying to rebuild after her mother had kicked her out at 16, then her father did the same when his new girlfriend wanted to move her own daughter in. She kept going, though. She pushed forward. But as her family says, she often chose the wrong men. She had her first son, Grayson, in 2017. And then just over a year later, she had a second little boy, Sawyer, with another partner. But that relationship didn't last either. Both fathers were not consistent in the boys' lives, so Shae did it on her own while leaning on family for support. And yet, through all of this, she never stopped dreaming. Shae wanted what she'd never really had, a secure, loving family. She wanted to be loved. She had hoped to have more kids someday with a husband who truly cared for her and her boys. She had been seeing someone new, and according to family members, there were even rumors that the two were engaged. She worked at Primerica as an insurance agent, and she was doing quite well. In fact, she was financially successful. She was proud of that, proud that she was building something for herself and her 2 little boys. She was someone who had fought through so much adversity already and who was finally seeing progress. And yet, underneath that, she carried stress. She was a single young mom balancing everything. She did struggle with depression and had been on prescription medication, which helped stabilize her moods. But as her close friend tells me, she was not the kind of person who would ever abandon her children. Ever. Her boys were her world. She was all that they had. Now here's where things get complicated. According to her mom, Shae came by the morning of January 30th. They spent some time together. That night, she was at her apartment on Edward Street in Chilliwack. Her boyfriend later tells people that Shae wanted to go for a drive with him and the kids, but he had said no as they had just started a new 8 p.m. bedtime routine with the boys, and he really wanted to stick to it. So he put the boys to bed while Shae went out alone. He says she left around 8:30 p.m. that night. Then, according to family members, he stayed in the living room watching TV until eventually he fell asleep. He woke up at around 1 in the morning and Shae still wasn't home, but instead of calling her or her family, he goes to bed. The next morning, he says he fed the boys breakfast at around 10 a.m., which the family found strange since those kids were really early risers. Then he drove them to Shae's mom's house, Alina. And here's where the timeline gets even murkier. I can't say for sure when Shae was officially reported missing. Some say it was January 31st, others say it was until February 1st. But if she left on the 30th, why was there a gap at all? Why 1 to 2 days before she's reported missing? I mean, if one of my family members went missing, you better believe I would be on the phone immediately calling the police, especially if it was completely out of character for her not to come home to her kids, which, from what I understand, this was out of the norm. And the strangeness doesn't stop here. According to family members, Shae had just bought a brand new Hyundai Tucson a couple of days before she went missing. The paperwork had not been finalized yet, so she needed to go back to the dealership to sign the rest of the documents. It's also said that her mother Alina had co-signed for the loan. The dealership had a tracker on the SUV, and when Shae didn't return to complete the paperwork, they used it to locate the vehicle. It pinged on Balham Road, that remote stretch along the Fraser River in Chilliwack. But here's the strange part. That was on January 29th. An entire day before she supposedly went out for her late night drive. And here's where I get stuck. How did she even have the SUV without signing all the papers? I mean, I've never been able to take a car home without my name in ink and many, many pages of ink. But who knows? Maybe, for whatever reason, she was able to take it home before she signed all the papers. So, another question was the SUV already abandoned before she supposedly left on the 30th? And then there's another wrinkle. Shae and her sister talked often, sometimes a couple times a day. Shae called her sister on the evening of January 28th, but her sister was putting her kids to bed and missed the call. She called back an hour later, but there was no answer. She tried again the next day on the 29th, multiple times, but still no answer. And that was not typical of Shae. She always called back. So now we have overlapping pieces that don't fit. A car reportedly allegedly abandoned on the 29th, a sister unable to reach her for 2 to 3 days, a mom who swears she saw her on the 30th morning, and a boyfriend who says that she left that night for a drive. And then there was no missing report until February 1st. So the dates just don't add up. Once Shae was reported missing, something became clear very quickly. There was no official search organized by RCMP or Search and Rescue. It was her family, her friends, and volunteers Ordinary people who loved her, out there in the cold, doing the work you'd expect investigators to do. They were the ones walking ditches with flashlights, flying drones over the fields, launching boats into the river, and scanning the banks in the dead of winter. And then there was her SUV, still sitting there abandoned. Inside were her phone, her wallet, and her prescription antidepressants. But no sign of Shae, no keys, and as far as her family knows, no fingerprints were ever taken from the vehicle. And I have to stop here, because honestly, this part frustrates me. This was a 23-year-old mother of two, vanishing into thin air, and yet it felt like the burden of searching was left on the people who loved her. Families should not ever have to do this alone. And all you true crime peeps out there know, at the very least, that SUV should have been treated as a crime scene, secured, processed, fingerprints taken. Why didn't investigators do their job? All avenues should have been looked at because at this point she was a missing person. During one of the searches on February 1st, one of Shae's family members made a discovery that would haunt everyone. About 1 mile to 1.5 miles downstream from where her SUV was parked, they found Shae's boots, mud-filled. Her socks lying in the mud underneath her boots. Now, when most people remove socks in a wet, muddy area, they put the socks inside the boot, not lay them under it. And this was a very suspicious finding. And according to the family member, down an embankment close to where the vehicle was found, there was a fire pit with burnt clothing in it. Now, to my knowledge, nothing was ever collected or tested from that clothing. Think about that. A brand new SUV abandoned, her keys missing, her antidepressants still in the car, her boots and socks on the riverbank 1 mile down the way from her vehicle, and burned clothes in a fire pit. It all seems so mysterious. So what happened to Shae, and where is she? Shae's family and friends never stopped. They kept searching. They plastered her face across Chilliwack. Posters went up in windows, on poles, in storefronts. Social media posts kept her story alive. And they followed every lead, even the ones that seemed far-fetched. At one point, family members went to a psychic. I know, that might sound unusual, but they were desperate and willing to try anything. The psychic gave them information about a house in Yarrow, BC, and they said that Shaelene was in the house. So they went. They brought missing person flyers ready to hand them out, but as they approached the house, a big, scary dog appeared on the property, so they backed off and called the police. When officers arrived, they went in, and inside was a young woman who looked just like Shae, but it wasn't her. Still, the lead wasn't meaningless. According to the family, it led police to uncover a human trafficking and drug trafficking operation connected to the house. Arrests were made. Something good came out of it, but for Shae's family, it was a hollow victory. It didn't bring her home, and it didn't bring answers to their questions. So the waiting dragged on. February, nothing. March, nothing. April, silence. May, still no answers. 4 long months of uncertainty. 4 months of explaining to 2 little boys that their mom was still missing. 4 months of family and friends holding on while the rest of the province seems to forget. Until June 2nd, when the Fraser River finally gave up its secrets. June 2nd, 2021. The Fraser River is fast-moving, high, silty, restless, carrying debris as it winds its way toward the ocean. Port Authority workers are on the river that day, between the Batello Bridge in New Westminster and the Port Mann Bridge that connects Surrey and Coquitlam. At first, it's just a shape in the water, but as they draw closer, they realize the truth. It's a body. After 124 days missing, the Fraser River had finally given up Shaelene Keeler Bell. But here's the heartbreaking part. Her family couldn't even identify her themselves. After 4 months in the river, her body was too decomposed. Instead, the identification had to be made scientifically, through DNA, dental records, or fingerprints, if any remained. These are the tools coroners rely on when a body is no longer recognizable. According to the Chilliwack Progress, citing the coroner's report, an autopsy revealed the cause of death was drowning. Additionally, there was no evidence of traumatic injury. Toxicological testing revealed the presence of her prescription medications, but the immediate cause of death was asphyxia due to drowning. And here's something that hasn't been widely reported. According to family members, Shae's death was initially deemed a suicide. That was the first assumption. But as more strange details surfaced, the boots and socks, the fire pit, police couldn't ignore it all. They couldn't outright call it foul play, but they also couldn't leave it labeled suicide. So the classification was changed to undetermined. For Shae's family, the discovery of her body did bring a strange kind of peace. They no longer had to live in that awful limbo, wondering every single day if she was still out there, if she might come home. They had her back. They could stop searching. But with that peace came something else. More questions than ever. Since the coroner ruled her death as drowning and undetermined, police quickly leaned towards suicide even before her body was found, according to family. Hence, why no police presence or search and rescue were at the searches. One detail in particular fed that suggestion. According to the Chilliwack Progress, Shaelene went to Chilliwack General Hospital on the evening of January 29, 2021. She told staff she was struggling with stress, and they set her up with an outpatient mental health appointment. She had reached out for help, and she was scheduled for a follow-up. Now, that matters because it explains why the coroner's implication leaned towards suicide. On paper, it fits a narrative. A young woman under pressure, showing up at the hospital saying she's needing help. But here's the thing. It's an investigator's job to look at all avenues before coming to any conclusions. And in Shae's case, there are so many strange happenings that it's hard to accept suicide as the simple answer. This hospital visit also ties into another thread. Remember how her sister said she tried calling Shae on the 28th and again on the 29th, but never got through? Maybe this explains it. Maybe Shae was at the hospital that night instead of picking up her phone. I couldn't find any source information to say how long she was at the hospital for, or if she had actually even stayed there overnight. But then another detail complicates things even more. According to the dealership, her SUV pinged on Balham Road on the 29th, that same night, which raises a big question. Did she really disappear on the 30th, like her boyfriend said? Or did something happen right after she left the hospital on the 29th? That one-day gap changes the entire timeline. And if her car was already sitting out on Balham Road, abandoned near the river, while her family believed she was still at home tucking her boys into bed, then something doesn't add up. And it's those inconsistencies stacked one on top of another that makes the suicide theory feel less and less likely. Now, I want to be clear that I am not pointing fingers at anyone. I am just saying there are so many strange pieces to this puzzle that I'm finding it difficult to put this puzzle together, especially when you look at everything else. This was a young woman who had just bought a brand new SUV 2 days earlier. who that night left her kids with her boyfriend, a boyfriend who didn't live with them, and drove off for a short drive. She had a good job that supported her boys, a support system of friends and family who loved her. If she wanted to commit suicide, why would she walk a mile down the riverbank through treacherous, uneven ground in the pitch black of night, take off her boots and socks, and step into the ice-cold river to drown herself? She had a bottle of prescription medication in the car. There was no alcohol or drugs or even an overdose of any medication in her system. Research tells us that most women who die by suicide use methods like poisoning or overdose. Drowning is actually rare. And the idea of Shae choosing that night and that method, it doesn't fit. Yes, she was stressed. Who wouldn't be? She was 23, raising 2 little ones during the isolation of a global pandemic. And there was even speculation, whispered among friends, that her boyfriend may have been cheating with Shae's friend, which raised even more suspicion when they became engaged less than 10 months after Shae disappeared. All of that would weigh heavy, but does stress explain her ending up in the Fraser River? According to family members, there's another detail that doesn't get talked about much. Because Shae worked with the insurance company Primerica, she had drawn up a will with her sister. In it, she was clear. If anything ever happened to her, custody of her 2 boys were to go to her sister and her sister's husband. But when Shae died, that will was nowhere to be found. It hadn't been filed into a registry, and the documents themselves just disappeared. And because of that, Shae's wishes couldn't be honored. Instead, her boys now live separately, each with their own father. I can't even imagine the distress and confusion those little boys must have been feeling, losing their mom and then being separated from each other on top of it. Another theory that came about was an accident. The Fraser River is cold, fast, and dangerous. People have slipped in before, and it doesn't take much. Could Shaelene have stopped on Balham Road, walked too close and fallen in? Maybe. But again, the details fight back. Why would she remove her boots and socks in the middle of winter? Why even stop there in the first place? Balham Road at night is not a scenic drive. It's pitch dark and isolated. What drew her there? And the last theory is foul play. And honestly, this is where many of the people closest to Shae land. Her belongings were still sitting in the SUV, and according to a close friend, right around the same time Shae vanished, women in Chilliwack were reporting being followed, even run off the road by suspicious vans. One of her friends even recalls seeing the back doors of one of those vans wide open, and inside, nothing but duct tape and rope. Creepy, right? So you have to ask, could Shae have crossed paths with someone dangerous that night? Someone who forced her off the road? Someone who knew exactly what they were doing when they abandoned her SUV at the river's edge? And then there's a strange phone call police got a few months after her body was found. A man claimed he knew Shaelene well, even went as far as to suggest he might be the father of her kids. But when her close friend heard this, they were baffled. They'd never even heard of this person. So just another loose thread that never tied up. And it doesn't stop there. A family member received a video showing what looked like a body floating down the Fraser River. Shae's body. A full 7 days before it was officially recovered. The man who sent it also followed up with text messages. In them, he said he knew what happened to Shae. He said she had been murdered by 2 men and a woman, the woman being a jealous girlfriend of a guy Shae had dated 2 years earlier. But here's the kicker. He said he wanted justice for Shae, but didn't want his name given to police. And as far as her family knows, investigators never questioned him, never followed up. And I have to say, that blows my mind. Why wouldn't you dig into a lead like that? why wouldn't you at least talk to the person who sent that video and those texts? It feels like a huge missed opportunity. Because think about it. How did someone know to be there at just the right moment to film Shae's body floating down the river? And if that really was just a coincidence, here's what makes it even stranger. The person who recorded that video was connected to the man who later claimed he knew how Shae was murdered. Connected enough that the video was passed from one to the other, and then eventually to the family member. It's a tangled chain, and honestly, it's hard to wrap our heads around. The whole thing is just so bizarre. When we talk about Shaelene's case, it is easy to get lost in the details. The SUV, the river, the coroner's report, the video, and the inconsistencies. But the real heartbreak is what she left behind. 2 little boys. Her sons were just toddlers when she vanished, too young to understand why their mom didn't come home that night. And then there's Shaelene's mom, Alina Durham. She hasn't just been grieving, she's been fighting. Alina has become a vocal advocate for a missing adult alert system in British Columbia. We all know Amber Alerts, those loud phone notifications when a child goes missing. We also have Silver Alerts in some provinces for seniors with dementia and other vulnerabilities. But for young adults like Shaelene, there's nothing. Alina believes that if such an alert had existed in January 2021, the public would have been mobilized. People would have been looking for Shaelene for her SUV in those crucial first hours, and maybe things would have turned out differently. Her push isn't just about her daughter, it's about making sure no other family has to live in this kind of limbo. Months of searching, endless unanswered questions, children growing up without their mom. I wish I could tell you that things have changed, but as of today, Shaelene's case is closed, and the ruling of undetermined still stands. And here's where I want to pause. Because after everything you've just heard, the contradictions, the strange discoveries, the unanswered questions, I can't help but feel this case deserves another look. I'd like to see an investigation opened up again, one that doesn't stop at undetermined, but actually asks the hard questions. A family member has even said they were told by RCMP that there just wasn't the budget to look further into foul play. And I'm sorry, but that's not good enough. Not for a 23-year-old mother of 2 whose death remains a mystery. And this is where you, the listener, can help. Share Shae's story. Talk about her case. Share on social media. Keep her name alive, because sometimes all it takes is one person, one tip, one memory, one detail to finally bring the truth to light. Shae wasn't just a statistic. She was a mother, a daughter, and a sister. She was loved. And for this story, I will leave you with this. Back in 2015, Shae wrote down her hopes and dreams, almost like a vision board for her life. She dreamed of traveling the world, doing missions trips, building schools, working in orphanages, and giving communities clean water. She dreamed of her wedding day, marrying the man she would love for the rest of her life, having a family, and never worrying about money. She wanted to buy a house, foster animals, ride an elephant, and work with kids or animals in some way. She also wanted to not disappoint people, get a job, graduate, be happy, find herself, and know that she will be okay. Haunting last words. Thank you for tuning in to Valley of Secrets. If you have any information on the death of Shaelene Bell, please call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. All source information is in the show notes. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider leaving a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Also, Follow along for behind-the-scenes footage and upcoming episodes on Instagram and Facebook at Valley of Secrets Podcast. I'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay aware, stay curious.